Good morning, Morai V'Rabotai, Biruchim Habayim. Welcome everyone. We're continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are holding on Daf Yud Bet, Amud Aleph, 19 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Tanu Rabbanan. Today's Amud is being learned. This week's learning of the Keilah has been sponsored by the Dayan family, by Cohen family, by Shea family. Should be an ultimate zchut for all of their families. Today's Amud has been dedicated for the Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, in memory of Esther Bat Naftali Tzvi HaLevi, and as a zchut for Yehuda ben Asher and Anael Bat Tzipora, Mala Hashem Kol Nish'alu Dibam Letova, by Menachem Kashanian, and also has been dedicated for Refuah Shelema of Mordechai Avshin ben Shoshana Shahanaz, that should have Refuah Shelema, full recovery, Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. So, we are up to yet another part, the last piece of the Mishnah, discussing over here, what happens if the Rotzeach leaves the Arei Miklat, but Beshogeg, right? He is taking a real tiul, a little walk around town, and unbeknownst to him, he has exited the tchum, the boundaries of Arei Miklat. Can he be killed now by the Goel Adam? He has no clue. He thinks he's in Arei Miklat. So says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan. Im yatzo yetze harotzeach. The pasuk says, if the rotzeach gets out of Arei Miklat, he is vulnerable. He is susceptible to the attack of Goel Hadam to be killed. Now, Yatzo Yetze is a double language of going out, he will go out. So whenever you have double language, we have the obvious question of, is this an extra language to be darshin, to be explained as a source for additional halachot, or maybe Dibra Torah Kilashon Bnei Adam. Maybe the Torah speaks in the language of Bnei Adam. So it's not surprising that a verb would be used twice as just simply means of emphasis, and that's how people speak. It's not coming to teach you any extra halachot, and that becomes a question over here as well. En li ela b'mezid b'shogeg minayin. How do I know that if the Rotzeach exits Arei Miklat b'shogeg, unbeknownst to him, he's out of Arei Miklat? Says the Gemara, Talmud Lomar, im yatzo yetze mikol makom. If he goes out, twice mentioned in the verbiage of the pasuk to teach you mikol makom. Even if he goes out not knowingly, still he would be susceptible to the attack of Goel Adam. The Gemara says, wait a second, that's very nice, but we have a Braita not like that. Ve'atanya, says the Gemara, the Braita says, Be'mezid ne'erak b'shogeg goleh, that if he exits the Ir Miklat Be'mezid, he's going to be killed. But if he goes out b'shogeg, he'll go back. He will be safely returned to his Ir Miklat, to the cities of sanctuary. So says the Gemara, lo kasha, it's not a question. Ha-keman de'amar amdinan dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam. Ha-keman de'amar lo amdinan dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam. It really depends on this very pointer that we just mentioned, whether Torah speaks in the language of Bnei Adam, writing in a language of emphasis just for emphasizing something, not for teaching you extra halachot, or do we say that the Torah means what it says, and if he would not want to teach me an extra halakha, he would just say im yetzeh. He would not say im yatzo yetzeh. So therefore, we have the allowance, and we have to darshan this as an extra halakha. Says the Gemara, Amar Abaye. Abaye says an interesting svara. Mistabra, it's logical. Keman Amar dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam. It's logical to say that this is not teaching you any extra halachot. And it is just an emphasis that the Torah is mentioning, like Lashon Bnei Adam, like the language people would have used, because of the following logic. What happens when a Rotzeach kills someone b'mezid? he's killed. And what happens if the Rotzeach kills someone b'shogeg? The guy goes to Galut, right? So says Abaye, the end of the person that goes to Galut, the Rotzeach, should not be more stringent than the actual halacha of Galut. Over here, if you tell me that even b'shogeg he will be killed, he will be susceptible to the attack, you're saying that the end, even though that you know the guy is b'shogeg, still he could be killed like a person that killed. So you end up with a very lopsided logic that the end could be more chamur, even more stringent than the beginning. So says Abaye, it's mistabra, kemande the Amar, Dibra Torah Keshumene Adam, Shelo Yeh Sofo Chamur Mitchilato, that the end of him should not be more stringent than the beginning. Matchilato b'mezid nerag b'shogeg goleh. Just like in the beginning, a person that murdered b'mezid is murdered, and a person that killed someone b'shogeg goes to exile, goes to galut. Af sofo b'mezid nerag b'shogeg goleh. At the end also, if this guy exited the safe zone b'mezid, so then your blood is on your own hands. You took the risk of your life to go out, but if he didn't know when you went out, then he should still be in the safe zone. He should be safely returned to Arei Miklat. Fine. Now what happens if the person that kills and the person whose family was killed are related? Namely, how about if a father killed Rahman Litzlan, his own son? Can his other son be the Goel Adam and kill the father? Right? A wonderful family. A wonderful family. So well, you ask, well, I mean, it's a technical question. Can it happen? You tell me, especially if you tell me that the Goel Adam has a mitzvah, like Rabbi Yossi, to kill the Rotzeach, so then maybe the mitzvah of Goel Adam should trump the mitzvah of Kivud Avayim. Does it? Or maybe does not. So says the Gemara. Tani Chada, one Mandamar says, Av Sheharag, a father who kills his son, Beno Nase lo Goel Adam. His son, his own son, becomes Goel Adam and could kill the father. Okay? V'tanya Idach, and another Braita says, no, en beno nase lo Goel Adam. No such thing. The son does not become Goel Adam. So the Gemara initially, before surgically analyzing the language of these two Braitas, the Gemara deems this as a stira, a blatant contradiction. And the Gemara says, well, maybe their machloket is exactly what we just mentioned 5 minutes ago, right? The last year, whether or not it's going to be a mitzvah for Goel Adam to kill the Rotzeach, or maybe it's just a reshut, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yossi, right? Says the Gemara, Lema ha Rabbi Yossi Aglidi veha Rabbi Akiva. The one that holds that you could kill your father because it's a mitzvah on Goel Adam to kill the Rotzeach, like Rabbi Yossi Aglidi. And the one that holds that you can't touch your father as the Goel Adam holds like Rabbi Akiva that is only reshut to kill the Rotzeach, and therefore a son cannot ever become a Goel Adam against his own father. And the Gemara steps back and asks the obvious question. The Gemara says, seriously? V'tisbra ben leman da'amar mitzvah ben leman da'amar rashut mishari? You think, according to any mandamar, a person could kill their father as the Goel Adam? V'ha'amar Rabba bar Ravuna. We have an explicit memra in the name of Rav Huna that indicates clearly not like that. It's a bit midrash of Rabbi Ishmael. In any case, in any given scenario, the son can never, ever be an agency to hit his father or to curse his father or to put his father in cherem. None of those things, even though that's a mitzvah of the Bedin, right? To give malkut is a mitzvah of the Bedin. Say the son is the designated agent of the Bedin. He's the one that lashes everyone. Can he lash his father? Absolutely not. It's a mitzvah. I don't care. You can never hit your father. You can never curse your father. Didn't we learn that? Chutz mi mesid. Only one exception. One exception, and that is by case of mesid. A person that is trying to proselytize avodah zarah to get people, to convince people to go do avodah zarah, by that specific case, that the city has been tilted after one man to do avodah zarah, that man is a danger to society, and the Torah explicitly sets him apart from anything else. And it says, Lo tachmol velo tchaseh alav. Do not have compassion. Do not cover up for him. Which means, doesn't matter who he is to you. You kill him, right? If I would want to say an additional pasuk for that would be, when Moshe Rabbeinu said this to the Jews, to Shevet Levi, in a specific, by Egel HaZahav, when there was a public demonstration of Avodah Zarah and people were falling for it. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ish be'aviv, a person with killing their own father and brother would be standing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's one mitzvah that the pasuk in clear words says, Lo tachmol velo tchaseh alav, ela, and that's the only time that you could kill a father. So it says in Gemara, therefore, I don't care if it's Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, it's Rabbi Akiva, you cannot be a Goel Adam for your brother against your own father. So how do you reconcile the two braitas? I mean, hare, we just had a braita that says a father that killed his son becomes Goel Adam.
Have an agent. Right?
So says the Gemara, the answer is extremely simple. Habe beno vehabe ben beno. Let's go back to the very beginning of this. Tani Chada, I'm just reading the language again to show you that the Gemara is not just pulling out the answer from his pocket, actually is reading the language of the Braita itself. Tani Chada, Av Shaharag Beno, a father who killed his son, Av Shaharag, comma, a father that killed, Beno Nase Lo Goel Adam. His son, meaning the Nirtzach, the one who was killed, the son who was killed, his son, who is the grandson of the killer, Beno Na'aseh Lo, he becomes for him, meaning for the father who was killed. You have grandfather, father, son, right? A grandfather that killed, the son, which is the grandson, becomes a Goel Adam for him, which is for the son who was killed. And this is, of course, a platform for a lot of halachic discussions, whether or not a grandson has the chiyuv, the normal chiyuv of kivud avayim to his grandfather, and how much is that the boundary of that obligation, what exactly is included, what is excluded from respecting a grandfather, because we know the grandfather and grandson are also connected, right? You have the obligation of teaching Torah to your children. You also have the obligation of teaching Torah to your grandchildren, right? That's what Lakewood uses, this Rambam. They send this with the bill to the rich grandfathers. You're mechuyav to teach your grandchildren Torah, and there goes the bill, right? So you have to know what exactly is included, what is excluded. But over here, the Gemara is saying, as far as the Goel Adam is concerned, the grandson could be a Goel Adam for his own father against his own grandfather, but a son can never be Goel Adam for his brother against their father. So it says the Mishnah. Another halakha relating to the boundaries of Arei Miklat. Imagine by the boundary of Arei Miklat you have a beautiful tree. A beautiful tree. And you want to go sit and take some shade, on top of the tree. You want to go on one of the branches. There's a clubhouse, whatever it is, a tree house, and you want to go up there, but it's protruding outside the boundaries of Arei Miklat. Can the sniper Goel Adam shoot him down, or do we say the tree goes after its trunk? Maybe the branches are at the end of the day, they're coming from the trunk, so maybe you should go after that, or maybe you should go after the branches. What exactly is the halacha in those scenarios? So says the Mishnah, if the tree itself is standing inside the boundary of Arei Miklat, but the branches are protruding outside the boundaries of Arei Miklat, or the tree is standing outside, the reverse case, and the branches are pushing inside the tchum of Arei Miklat, hakol holech achar hanof. Everything goes after where the branches are. We disregard where the trunk is, we go after the branches. So therefore, if this tree is standing inside Arei Miklat, and the guy says, well, this is a tree that stands inside Arei Miklat, I could go up, right? And he goes up, and he is now outside. This is, by the way, a perfect example of shogeg, right? He has no clue that the branches are the kovea. So if this tree is standing inside Arei Miklat, branches are out, and he's going out, no one could touch him, right? He thinks. But the truth is, you could, because the branches are the kovea. And the Goel Adam who knows the halacha, he wants to shoot him down, but the halacha would be, well, he's yatso yatsa b'shogeg, so you have to deal with that machloket. But if he knows, and he goes, then he will definitely be susceptible to Goel Adam. So says the Gemara, how does this make sense? Because this is not the only case in Mishnayot that we deal with trees and their branches in being in two different domains. For instance, by the laws of Maserot, we have a Mishnah that discusses this very thing. And over there, the Mishnah seems to contradict this Gemara, this Mishnah that we just learned. Over there, we seem to suggest that we draw a line, meaning the tchum, the border, goes up and cuts through, imaginary line, cutting through whatever it is above it, and whatever from the branch or the trunk that is inside the tchum would be considered inside the tchum. Whatever is outside the tchum will be considered outside the tchum, and have a nice day. That's what we say by halachot of Maserot. Let's learn the Mishnah Urmini. It's a stira. Ilan shehu omed betoch. The tree that is standing inside, bifnimi has to be, right? Bifnim venotel lachutz, and the branches are protruding outside. Or omed bachutz venotel lifnim, or standing outside, venotel lifnim, and the branches are coming in. This is talking about in and out of Yerushalayim, right? We know that when we talk about the laws of Maaser Sheni, that the person separates, has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. So even if you live in Eretz Yisrael outside of Yerushalayim, you have to schlep your Maaser Sheni and eat them in Yerushalayim. If you can't do that, because they're too heavy, you could redeem them on money outside Yerushalayim and bring the money, the coins inside Yerushalayim, buy stuff and eat in Yerushalayim. That's the basic laws of Maaser Sheni. Not regular Maaser, but Maaser Sheni, right? So that depends on where the boundaries of Yerushalayim are. Because if you're standing one step behind the walls of Yerushalayim, you can't eat Maaser Sheni, but you can redeem it. If you're stepping one step inside Yerushalayim, now you could eat Maaser Sheni, but you can no longer redeem it, right? So both of those halacha. So what is the halacha, says the Mishnah? If you have a tree, and you're on branches of the tree, now the trunk is in Yerushalayim, the branches are outside. The trunk is in, Eretz Yisrael, outside Yerushalayim, the branches are in Yerushalayim. What's the halacha? And on that the Mishnah says, whatever mikneged hachoma v'lifnim kelifnim, mikneged hachoma v'lachutz kelachutz. You just extend an imaginary line above the walls of Yerushalayim, and whatever is inside is considered like inside, and whatever is outside is considered, we have no regard to the trunk or the branches. We don't care if you're on the trunk, on the branches, the trunk is inside, the trunk doesn't matter. If you are literally standing outside Yerushalayim, even though that the trunk of the tree is inside, but you're on one of the branches standing outside Yerushalayim, protruding outside, you're like outside. If the trunk and the majority, 99% of the tree is outside, and one branch sticks in, and you're on that one branch that stands in front of the boundary of Yerushalayim, you're like inside Yerushalayim. That's what the Mishnah says about Maaser Sheni. So the Gemara says, how do you reconcile this question? The Gemara says, well, you have to reconcile this. This is Maaserot, that is Galut, that's Rotzeach B'Shogeg, Arei Miklat. What's the connection? Well, you can't have two different criteria. What's the difference? Let's run. Maaser Arei Miklat Karamit. You ask a question, a stira from Maaser to Arei Miklat, to the cities of refuge. Maaser bechomat ala rachmana. By Maaserot, the Torah clearly has hinged it on the wall of Yerushalayim. You're inside Yerushalayim, you're outside Yerushalayim. The pasuk says you got to be inside Yerushalayim to do this. But Arei Miklat bedirat harachmana. Arei Miklat is very different, because out of every other sugya that we have in Shas, Arei Miklat depends on living space, because you have to be living in Arei Miklat. So what's the living space? You can't live in the trunk. That's that. You live in the branches. If you want to make a tree house, where do you build the tree house? Build it on the branches. So therefore everything goes after the branches, because that's the living space, so to speak, of a tree. So says the Gemara, benofo mitdarle, you could live on the branches, but by the base of the tree, where it grows out of the ground, that's not a place that you could live in, unless the tree is dead, of course, right? Lo mitdarle, ve'romi maaser maaser. The Gemara says, no problem, I could ask the same stira from the sugya maaserot to the sugya maaserot itself. How so? The Tanya, we learned in a Braita, Birushalayim, Helech achar hanof, be'arei miklat, helech achar hanof. By Yerushalayim, in Yanav Maaserot, also you go after where the branch is, says the Braita, just like you go after the branches by Arei Miklat. So that's a Braita clearly going against the Mishnah in Maaserot that we just learned, that you don't go after the branches, you go after the wall. You just extend the wall, and whatever is in, whatever is out, right? So how do you deal with that? In other words, you have a Mishnah that says, by Maaserot, you go after whether you're in or out, regardless of branches or the trunk. And the other Braita is saying that you always go by Maaserot after the branches, just like Arei Miklat. That is a blatant stira. Blatant, there's no way around it. So Mara says, correct, but it really depends where you are. Amar of Kana, lo kasha, last line. The Gemara says, it's not a question, it's not a problem. Ha Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan. It's machloket Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan in a different Braita. Let's quickly learn this Braita. Rabbi Yehuda says, B'me'ara helech achar pitcha. Yesterday we discussed this in short, that if you have a cave, and the cave extends miles into a different country, a different city. Here the Braita is discussing Yerushalayim versus outside of Yerushalayim in Eretz Yisrael. And we're talking about Masrot over here. So Rabbi Yehuda says, when you have a cave, you go after the petach. Where is the entrance of the me'ara? The entrance is Yerushalayim. The whole me'ara is in Yerushalayim. For miles it extends outside Yerushalayim, doesn't matter. So long as the opening is in Yerushalayim, this is an extension of Yerushalayim. And by trees you go after the branches after the nof. So it says this is Rabbi Yehuda. Emor de shamat le Rabbi Yehuda gabe maaser lechumra. Now this is a little bit more involved. The chumra and kulav. This we're out of time. We'll Bezat Hashem leave this for tomorrow morning. Chazak Baruch.